you for tuning in to the ACTT podcast. My name is Edward. We're glad that you're here today. This is our very first episode, so we're very excited. This is my sister Emily. She's one of my co-hosts.
Hey guys, we have some great shows lined up for you, so stay tuned. And this is one of our great friends and co-host, Manny Garcia.
Hi guys, as Emily said, I'm Manny, and this is ACTT, Alamo City Table Talk. So stick around, it's gonna be fun.
Today we have Meredith Chacon with us, who's running for Bexar County District Attorney. This is a very important race, and so we hope that y'all will get to know her. So, Manny, hit it off.
So with that, I want to welcome Meredith Chacon. Meredith, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you.
Today, we appreciate it. So why don't you tell us what you're running for?
All right, well, I'm running for Bexar County District Attorney. That's the highest law enforcement official in the county. That's the person who is responsible for prosecuting criminal offenses, anything over a Class B misdemeanor, all the way up through capital murders. Some people don't know the district attorney has a lot of different jobs. That the criminal prosecution is the main job, but the district attorney also represents the county in civil cases. So giving advice to the county commissioners, representing the county government is part of the job of district attorney. So that's the civil side. And then the district attorney also represents Child Protective Services in cases where they remove children for abuse or neglect. And in our county, the district attorney's office also handles protective orders for domestic violence victims and is also handling a mental health docket for when people have to be detained on an emergency basis or possibly involuntary civil commitment. So there's just a lot of things that the DA's office does. But the main job, the thing people really know about, is the law and order, prosecution of criminal offenses.
Meredith, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, your childhood, where you're from.
So it's interesting, I'm a military brat, so I'll just say that. So when you ask a military brat, where are you from? It's like this complicated question. We always look like a deer in headlights. We're like, so my parents were born and raised in Fort Worth, Texas. They're high school sweethearts. My dad joined the Air Force in 1970, and they left Fort Worth, Texas. He went to Spain. So traveled all over the world. I was born in Texas. The only member of our family not born in Texas is my brother. I get to tease him, but we're all Texans.
Where was he born?
He was born in Arizona on an air base. So, we traveled all over with Dad. I actually went to elementary school here in San Antonio, first and second grade, and then we moved. And I was fortunate enough to live in Germany for 4 years. And my dad was at the Pentagon, so we lived in Springfield, Virginia for a few years. We came back to San Antonio when I was in high school. So I graduated from Madison, and we've been here ever since. Dad retired here in 95. He was a squadron commander out at Wilford Hall for the Medical Service Corps.
Oh, nice.
And so it was really cool. They had a changing of the command when he retired. And so I went to college here at Incarnate Word, met my husband there. My husband is a lifelong San Antonian, born and raised. He went to Marshall. So we've been together forever and ever and ever, it seems like. We've been married 23 years and in the summer. Awesome. And we have 2 kids that are almost grown, so they're glad I'm running because they're glad I'm not at home all the time. And I was pregnant with my daughter when I graduated from law school, so I feel like she's been with me on this journey the whole time. And then, like I said, I had my son when I started doing child abuse, so they really impacted my career because it was everything I did was kind of what am I doing to help people like them? How am I going to protect other kids? And I know growing up, I always think I grew up in Germany because those 4 years were like the years that you go from being a little kid to a teenager. But it was very much taught to me that I was a representative of my country while I was living there. And that we were to always be aware of that when we were out in the free, I guess, off base. And so, you just had this reverence for. And I remember I was telling my mom and dad, I've always been a Republican, but I know how I can articulate when I knew that's the party I was going to align with. When I was very young, there was a disco that was bombed in Berlin when we lived there. And it became very dangerous as Americans to be overseas at that time. This was like 1985. I was little, so I think it was 85, 86. So President Reagan bombed Libya the next day. That was his response. You blow up at a disco where Americans are, okay, I'm coming for you. And I remember thinking, we're safe with this guy in charge. He's going to take care of us over here. And seeing what has happened recently, I don't feel like our people felt that way. And I mean, my heart is broken for that. So I've always been aligned with the party that I felt like was going to keep us safe. So it was very important to me. So,
Can you describe a little bit your proudest achievement as a prosecutor?
well, yeah, so I was at the DA's office for 18 and a half years. 15 of that I spent as a prosecutor. I kind of grew up there. I was there before law school, during law school, and I just stayed. And in 2005, when I was pregnant with my son, I moved to the child abuse unit. And that was when I had my first kind of experience prosecuting child abuse, which was hard as a mother of babies. And I think, though, I discovered I was really good at it because I could relate to the kids and meet them on their level. And so I think there are several trials that come to mind when you say that, but I had one trial in particular in 2012 where I prosecuted a sex offender, pedophile, and I got 8 life sentences from the jury, and the judge stacked them. So he will never, ever get out again. It was a really hard case. My little girl was the same age as my daughter, so it made it emotional to try. And she was 8 at the time of trial, but I had her testify by closed circuit, which no one had done in Bexar County. It is a provision in the law that is allowed because it was her biological father. So it made it too hard for her to face him in court. We protected her. We were able to leverage some technology that we hadn't used before. And so that was good, and it was a very innovative trial, but I fought hard for that girl. And I've kept up with her. She's 19, she's doing well, and she was adopted and has a lovely life, and so that's the one that really changed my life. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. It's very touching. So we were talking earlier, and Emily, I think you mentioned something about people, why they run, and she's like, what motivates you to run?
Well, I think what motivated me to run is just you get to a point in your career where you realize that you know the job, you love the job, and you can do the job, like you have a vision for what it will be. That's one of the reasons. I always knew I would eventually do this, I guess is what I'm saying. I worked for Judge Reed for 16 years. I saw that entire administration. And that was it was a great learning experience, great opportunity to learn. And then I was there into the previous administration to now for 3.5 years before I left. And I got to experience some things there and see a different way of managing. And I kind of came to my own style. And I ended up running a unit of 35 employees at the office. I was able to write budgets, lobby for the money, buy the computer system, like do all the things that a manager would do in that position. And it really kind of honed my skills as far as being an administrator and all of those things. So when I decided to leave after the Soros money happened, and that was something that came out, I knew at that point I was going to run. I just didn't really know how that would work out. And so it took a lot of, I talked to my husband, prayer, but it's a job that I have a passion for. So I think the reason I'm running is all I ever wanted to be was a prosecutor. And to be the top prosecutor and inspire young prosecutors and really take care of our county would be an honor.
So you mentioned Soros. Can you tell me how much he donated to Gonzalez?
I believe, and I'd have to go back and look to make sure, but I believe it was just under $1 million. It was like $980,000 maybe.
That's a lot of money.
It was a lot of money.
That man.
Out of town money. I mean, if nothing else, even if you're not, whatever your political persuasion, it's an out of town person buying justice in Bexar County. That ought to turn your head right.
What would you do differently than what Gonzalez has done in his term?
Well, right off the bat, there was an announcement that there was going to be this, what he calls a policy of declination. And so you need to know what that means. That's really important.
What is it called?
Declination. And that means they decline to prosecute certain offenses. And my view is, as a prosecutor, you take an oath to uphold and defend the laws of the state of Texas. I mean, the U.S. Constitution, but the laws of the state of Texas. And so you do not decline to prosecute entire level of offenses. That's the job for the legislature. To pass and rescind laws is not the job of the DA's office. You have prosecutorial discretion on a case-by-case basis to analyze cases. But if law enforcement brings you a case where someone has broken the law and you can prove that case, it is your job to prosecute that case. Now, let me be clear. He's not prosecuting criminal trespass. He's not prosecuting low-level drug offenses. And I say low-level, and I realize that's vague, but that's been a moving target. So it started off as, certain amounts of marijuana, but at this point, there are certain amounts of cocaine, heroin, and methamphetamine that they will not prosecute, which is appalling. Because we all know what a horrible thing cocaine, methamphetamines, and heroin is, all right? And so, and then there's some other offenses that have been kind of in there too. I think at some point graffiti was on the no-no list, maybe criminal mischief, low-level crimes. But when you look at what low-level crime does to our crime rate, what are we having now? We're at the highest violent crime rate in 30 years. That's a direct consequence of this atmosphere of lawlessness. You can get away with whatever. You don't have to do anything, So I think that you have to enforce the law as written, and then you can be just in the way you hand out justice, right? Arrest does not have to equal long-term incarceration, but we're going to have a consequence for behavior.
There's the rise in human trafficking in San Antonio, and it seems to be the hub.
Human trafficking is a huge problem, but it is also a very complex problem because you have, there are different types of human trafficking. There's labor trafficking, there's sex trafficking, any kind of forced labor or service, right, that you're making someone do. And a lot of what we see is child sex trafficking, and I think that it is a much bigger problem here than we're aware of, and part of the reason that we are unaware of it or that it is not prosecuted as much is because there has been a lack of support for law enforcement having the resources to properly investigate it. And so I think that the DA should be advocating not to defund the police, don't even get me started on that, but to advocate for more resources to help these investigators. Because what the truth of human trafficking is, it's a very labor-intensive investigation. There's a lot of tentacles involved when that is going on. And the particular people that are victimized by human trafficking have very special needs. There's a lot of going back to the trafficker, just a lot of things that happen there that take a lot of time to build trust with your victim. And so you have to have the resources to have the time to dedicate to those cases. And so I think we would catch more of them if we had those resources. And so I think as the DA, you need to be advocating for your law enforcement partners to get the resources they need. And then you also have to be a good partner and be able to work with multiple jurisdictions, because it's not like it's like the Dukes of Hazzard where you cross the county line and that stops, right? If it's trafficking, they're traveling, so they're coming through I-10, 35, whatever. So you've got to be working with people in Houston, people in Dallas, people in Austin, people up and down the road. I currently represent children in child protection court, right? So in children's court. And I have a client who is a trafficking victim, and she's constantly on the run. They bring her in, she runs. She's been trafficked all up and down I-35. They're picking her up in Austin, she's 14. So, I see it in that case, it's happening, and it's a multi-jurisdictional thing. Hays County's been involved, so has as far north, just past Austin, Georgetown area, Williamson County, they've been involved. So you have to build those relationships with the rangers, with the DPS, with your local law enforcement, with other DA's offices. And so that's really important. So I think, relationships, and resources is
and that was one thing I wanted to ask, your relationship with law enforcement. Do you have a good relationship with law enforcement? Will you be able to make those connections so that we can take care of this issue? Because I think it's a big issue. And also a separate question, the funding. Do you think it's intentional that there's not enough funds for sex trafficking? Or, because to me that's a big issue, child sex trafficking, our group, that's something that, hits our heart. And so, there's got to be more that we can do. The DA, police, there's got to be something that we can do, but if you can comment.
Well, to the first question on cooperation with law enforcement, I have a great reputation with law enforcement. I have worked with them. I've done actual joint investigations with law enforcement. There was a case that came to the DA's office that I was investigating that got so big that we went back to SAPD and said, we need your help. So we had, detectives assigned, and we were coordinating both organizations doing an investigation. But I have a proven record dealing with what we call the multidisciplinary team. So that's where you bring together, and for trafficking it's really important, you bring together law enforcement, medical providers, child protective services, therapists, like everybody comes to the table together to fight it. And I have done that successfully. I've even done it on a statewide level. I sit on the statewide multidisciplinary team. So I know law enforcement people in all sorts of jurisdictions and all sorts of agencies that respect me and will work with me and know that I respect them, because the respect has to be mutual. And I think we have an adversarial relationship right now, our county, with law enforcement. Our DA has a very adversarial relationship because he has taken them on as a political pawn, right? They're defund and all his Soros-funded things are to be anti-police. They know that. They feel that. You hear that from the guys, boots on the ground. You hear that from people down at the courthouse. So, and I know that in my own practice. But I'm a team builder. And I feel like you have to work with and empower law enforcement and engage them in this process together, and you'll get better investigations. The funding, I don't know if it's intentional or not that we're not funding, but I think that we have to start working with law enforcement, empowering them to do these investigations. And as we see more successful prosecutions, that will help us get more funding. So that would be how I would work at that. And then you have to have a DA that's willing to say, this is important, we need these resources.
And you would be that DA?
Absolutely. Awesome. This is important, we need those resources. I will say that over and over again. Yeah.
Meredith, what is proactive policing? If you're for it, what would you do to ensure that it's implemented? And if you're not, tell us why.
So my understanding of proactive policing is when, like when you see officers driving around and they're looking for suspicious activity. They're out actively, proactively looking for things, driving around neighborhoods, keeping us safe, right? Does it look like that window got broken? I need to go see if that house is okay. Or they see a car that's been broken into, they're going to approach, right? Or somebody running off, they're going to go see what's going on. And I'm very much for that. I think that, I mean, that's what we want, right? That's what we assume is happening, right? So what I hear from law enforcement officers that I've been talking to out in the field, and I've gone and I've spoken to several different groups and officers, not just like their union reps, but like the guys in the field, is that they don't feel supported right now because of this adversarial relationship that exists. And they don't feel like, because if you think about it this way, if you're proactively going after a bad situation, you're more likely to have some sort of officer-involved incident. You might have to chase somebody. You might have to take somebody down, right? And those are things that right now are very scary for police officers, because if they're going to be blamed, vilified, tried in the media, you know, whatever's going to happen to their job, if they're going to be riding a desk for the next 2 years, why are they going to do that? They need a DA who's going to be supportive. Now, I want to be clear, that doesn't mean I just roll over and do whatever anybody wants. I'm not that type of person. But I think if the Constitution says we as citizens are innocent until proven guilty, then by God, the police are innocent until proven guilty also. And so we should be approaching those from the idea that they have a presumption of innocence and our support so that they feel safer themselves out there keeping us safe. So,
Yeah.
Can you tell us about your public service? Like, what groups are you involved with? What have you done for the community?
Well, so I'm very active in my church, and actually we just recently moved churches because my husband finished seminary and became a pastor. So he's at St. Mark's United Methodist, and so that's been a journey. I'm an active band mom. I won't say where because I try to be protective of my kids, but I'm very involved in what my kids do and working with their stuff. And then I do take time to do some volunteer work. I do some pro bono legal work for people that don't have money. I've represented a couple of different trafficking victims on things. And then I sit on the board of the Methodist Children's Home in Waco, which is where my grandfather grew up. He was raised there, grew up there. And so they provide services for families. They also provide placement for children that have no place to go. And so a very good organization, very trauma focused in what they do. So I sit on that board. And then most of my volunteer work goes through the church when I'm thinking about it, actually. It's just, whatever service projects the church is working on or the band is doing or, with my kids. So that would be the short answer, that and the work I do at my office. So.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What would be one of the first things that you do if you're elected in?
Well, the very first thing I do, I have a way I'm going to restructure the office, and that is I think that it's not currently the most efficient design. So I'll say that much. So that is one thing. But kind of day one, I want to change just the general attitude. I want them to be proud to be prosecutors. I think having someone who's been a defense attorney his whole life and has no respect for the job, having no respect for them, has had this atmosphere that they're not happy there. I mean, 5 people left last week. You know, I'm not making that up. You can look at how many people have left. So I think we gotta make them proud to be prosecutors again. And then I want to set up kind of a residency, almost like they have in medical school, where when new prosecutors come in, that they rotate through the different areas and learn the different areas of the office so that they can be mentored and shaped, and we can find where is their best fit. You don't want people in child abuse that don't want to be there, right? You don't want people in vehicular crimes that don't want to be there. You want to have them rotate through, and let's find out where that person's best fit is, and then let's make them the best. I mean, I want us to be an elite strike force in court. Not dismissing everything, not afraid to go to trial. I want us to knock it out of the park every time, because when we tee it up, we need to be ready to go. So for me, it's like training, mentorship. Those things are easy to implement, and we should do those early on. And then, I mean, just number one, day one, rebuilding that relationship with law enforcement. I want to be at the academy. I want to be at roll call. I want to be out at the substations, letting them know there is a new DA in town, and she is here to get things done. So that would be like day one.
I like that. That's really good. So just to lighten things up, I just wanted to ask, do you have a unique talent, special talent, something that you like doing?
I like to sing. I don't know if it's unique, but I like to sing. I actually was in a singing group that toured around Germany when I was a kid called the Sound of Music Singers. Shout out, because they're all on my Facebook. And we still stay in touch, and that music teacher is actually the person that taught me how to not be nervous, how to have stage presence. So yeah, and I love to sing karaoke. I think maybe that's how we should decide this. Me and DA will have a karaoke battle.
We'll agree with that.
I'm just kidding. But I love to sing, and I'm not afraid to do it. So yeah.
I love that. That's good stuff. Good stuff.
Who do you like to sing? What can you sing? What's your favorite thing?
What's your go-to artist? Your go-to song? 'Cause I
God,
can
you're
tell you
gonna
mine.
date me. Like you're gonna y'all know I'm old. I'm a girl of the '90s.
Sister, you gotta know. I got you.
Yeah, well, I like the old stuff. I like everything. I really have. But I when I go to karaoke, I like. There's some Bonnie Raitt. I like. There's some Alanis Morissette, Reba McEntire. Like just a bunch of weird,
That's not
randoms.
weird.
So.
I like to Purple Rain over everybody when I'm.
You don't want to hear him do Purple Rain.
Yes, you do.
That is awesome. Purple Rain. That's great.
Purple
Yeah, we used to
Rain.
go a lot in law school, and I mean, it's just a way
That's
to
great
blow off
stuff.
steam.
That's good. You know what? That makes you human.
Yeah.
You're
there you go.
not a stiff. I love
Yeah.
it. Well, who is this lady? Is she a stiff? No, she's not.
No.
It's good people.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, Meredith, we want to thank you for spending the time with us today. We wish you luck on your campaign. And if you don't mind just, again, sharing where people can donate, where they can reach out to you to volunteer.
Sure.
And again, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, just go to votechacon.com. There you can click on the donate link. You can click on the volunteer link. You can read all about my life sentences. You can read all about what I love. And check me out. I mean, just give me a chance, because I think if you look at that website, you listen to what I have to say, you're going to see that regardless of who you are or what you believe, I am the best DA for Bexar County. I'm the most experienced. I have a passion for this job, and I love this county. So.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.